Time of supply chapter has, like I told you, has 2 sections for us to learn. Then we can club an area in invoice chapter together with it called as due date of invoice, and I will give you a circular on hybrid annuity model, considering that might be tested in your exam. I'm going to recap. My notes are enough for you to look at for this chapter. So I'm going to recap that from our chart book. Okay, so time of supply would help you to understand when to pay taxes. So the monthly we have to pay taxes is the general understanding other than composition levy scheme. Composition levy scheme, what is the periodicity in which you pay taxes? Quarterly. Who will pay taxes? Now after the charge chapter, we know that the tax of the government, tax to be paid to the government can either be paid by supplier or paid by recipient, depending upon whether it's forward charge or reverse charge. Both of them have the same due date, that is on or before 20th of subsequent month. Then for one single supply, I can have multiple relevant date, which could be confusing for me to understand where the supply, which month the supply belongs to. To give an example, when I'm selling the goods to someone, suppose I delivered the goods in January to the customer, I gave the bill in February, and I got the money in April. 3 information that I've given you, all of them belongs to one single supply, but 3 different months I have touched upon. I know that I have to pay taxes on or before 20th of next month. Which base month I should take? So I have 3 relevant dates here for goods. One is date of delivery, date of invoice, date of receipt of payment. So supplier will be confused which month to choose. That will be done through the sections that are given under section 12 for goods, and similarly for service also same problem can come for the supplier. Look at, as a supplier, I will finish the service in January. I'm doing an audit. I'm a chartered accountant. I finished the audit in January. I gave the bill in February. I got the money in April. Which month I should pay the taxes to the government? For the single supply, I have multiple dates that is relevant. Right? So in both supply of goods and supply of services, you have this confusion whether which month my supply belongs to when you have multiple dates which are relevant. Like for goods, I told you delivery, invoice, payment, receipt of payment. For service also completion, invoice and receipt of payment. Time of supply helps you to understand what will be the time of supply. You have to choose out of these 3 dates one date. That's all this entire chapter is, which is very simple for you to do if you analyze and understand this case. Ideally there are 3 sections, but section 14 is only there for final, so we will only learn 12 and 13. All your examination, now I'm going to give you an exam tip. For your examination, to understand which section to write, for time of supply, it's very simple logic that you have to apply. The logic is very simple, straightforward. What you do, you look at is the question is talking about goods or service. If question is goods, they're saying Mr. A is supplying biscuits, your time of supply will be under section 12. Mr. A is supplying service of architect, it is 13 that will be applicable to you for time of supply, because all time of supply for goods is determined under 12 and service is determined under 13. The subsection structure is also same under 12 and 13. 12 subsection 2 talks about supplier, how will he determine time of supply. So 12.2 is for supplier of goods and 13.2 is for supplier of service. Similarly, subsection 3 in section 12 and 13 will help the recipient to determine time of supply. Recipient of goods paying taxes under RCM will apply 12.3 and recipient of service will apply 13.3. 4 and 5, 6 I have already discussed together with value. 4 and 5 talks about special scenarios. Section 4, subsection 4 is now removed, not applicable for May exam. From September exam onwards, different understanding for subsection 4. Now subsection 4, for that reason, might not be tested in this exam, so we don't have to stress too much on that. Subsection 5 is hardly tested. It's called about the residual case. So for you to learn, I would recommend you to learn only subsection 2 and 3 for the exam. Only this much will be very relevant for you. Let's look at what is the time of supply. For me, it is just 2 chart you learn and then you are sorted. I have given 2 charts. Chart number 1, chart number 2. That's it. Look at this. Time of supply for supplier. How will you decide? What I've done, I have included both supplier of goods and supplier of service in one single chart. And I used to make one line summary of this. My summary is like this. Normally, time of supply would be the date the person liable to pay tax has control over. Normally, in FCM, who's the person liable to pay taxes? Supplier. What is the date supplier has control over after the supply? It is invoice. So normally for supplier, it is invoice. For recipient, what is the date that he has control over after the supply? It is the date on which he makes payment. So for supplier, it is invoice. For recipient, it is payment. Likewise, you should remember in your head. Now look at the wordings that they have given for supplier of goods. What is the time of supply for supplier of goods? They said it is earlier of. Which section would I apply? For goods, section 12. For supplier, subsection 2. So 12 subsection 2. What it says? Time of supply for supplier of goods is earlier of following dates. Clause A, date of invoice. Clause A, date of invoice or due date of invoice, whichever is earlier. Clause B says date of receipt of payment, but I have written it specifically there. This particular part is omitted for supplier of goods other than composition levy scheme and specified actionable claims. So we can say that I should not consider generally clause B. So only clause A I need to consider, which says what? For supplier of goods, I'm a mobile phone trader. What is the time of supply for me? Date of invoice or due date of invoice, whichever is earlier. The same thing can be interpreted slightly different. How can I say? Hey supplier, if you issue invoice within the due date, invoice date is your time of supply. So I'm a mobile phone trader. When should I pay GST to the government? Which month did you give invoice? Next month 20th will be your due date. I can say like that. Provided you gave the bill within the due date. When will I apply date of receipt of payment also? Only if it is case of specified actionable claim or composition levy scheme. Other cases I will ignore this. I'll only take the clause A. What is due date of invoice? Section 31 talks about due date of invoice. In that, 31 subsection 1 gives you basic understanding on what is due date of invoice. What is 31 subsection 1 says? Generally for goods, how do you determine due date of invoice? When should I give invoice is the meaning of due date of invoice. I'm again redrafting the understanding of due date of invoice. Due date of invoice, okay? So I'm saying due date of invoice is something that you have to understand as when should I issue the invoices? Due date. Logically, when should I give the bill? That's what is given in the provision itself. You have to ask the question whether supply involves movement of goods, which means is there a transportation involved? The answer is no, which means when will you not have transportation? Say you all have been to Sangeeta Mobiles or Purvika Mobiles and all that. You go to this mobile phone shop and you bought a mobile phone. And after getting this new mobile phone, you walk out of the showroom. The security will stop you and ask for what? Bill. Why? Because you got the delivery of the product with you. So normally, before you get the delivery, they should have given you an invoice. That's what is given here. If there is no movement, you went and then purchased the product. Before delivery of the goods, there should be an invoice that is given. If you give the invoice, if you get the invoice before delivery, then due date of invoice would be the date of delivery. The invoice is given before delivery means your time of supply would be due date of invoice or date of invoice, whichever is earlier. The date of invoice would be the time of supply. What if there is transportation involved? If transportation is involved, say you ordered some product on Amazon will they give you a bill if you have ordered the product on Amazon? Will they give you a bill after the product reaches you or before the product has even started transportation? Even before transportation, because the transporter should have a bill with you. Have you seen in Amazon on the box itself they give bill? So they said, if there is movement of goods, the answer is yes. Your due date of invoice is the date on which the supplier is removing the goods to give it to the transporter. So look at the wordings that they have given. Due date of invoices, date of removal of goods for supply. What is the relevance of this due date? This due date and date of invoice will be compared, and whichever is earlier is taken as the time of supply. The easiest method to learn this is to look at questions. So let me take you through a question. One popular question that they ask in time of supply chapter is this. Look at question number 8. Mehak and Sons is the registered supplier of electronic items and pays GST under regular scheme. On 15th July, Mehak Sons received an order from Sundar Trader for supply of a consignment of electronic items. Mehak Sons gets the consignment ready by 20th July. The invoice for the consignment was issued the next day, that is 21st of July. Sundar Trader could not collect the consignment immediately. Sundar Trader collects the consignment from the premises of Mehak Sons on 30th of July and hands over the check towards payment on the same date. The said payment is entered in the books of accounts of Mehak Sons on 31st of July and amount is credited in their bank account on 1st of August. You are required to determine time of supply of electronic items for the purpose of payment of taxes. I want you to read the question at your end. Can I also read it, right? Yeah. So when you get a question on time of supply, first you should look at, is it goods or service? I'm telling you because this is the approach that you should look at. So this is talking about electronic items. You know that it is supply of goods. The moment it is supply of goods, you know that the section is section 12. So you sorted with the section number, right? Then I should look at electronic items are under forward charge. It's 12 subsection 2. 12 subsection 2 says that time of supply is earlier of two dates. One is date of invoice or due date of invoice, right? Whichever is earlier. In this question, I should look at what is date of invoice, what is due date of invoice. That's all I have to do. Should I consider date of receipt of payment? No, it is under regular scheme. Only in composition and specified actionable claim I would compare it with date of receipt of payment. So that is not relevant for me. So there are a lot of irrelevant information available in this question. So first I will go and identify date of invoice. What was the date of invoice in our question? Invoice, there is a sentence like this. Invoice for consignment was issued on the next day, that is 21st of July. So I have written the date of invoice is 21st of July. So this is 21st July. Then I have to look at what is the due date of invoice. To understand due date of invoice, I have to look at, is there date of delivery or date of removal of goods for supply that is given. For that, I should understand whether there is supply, whether in this case supply involves transportation or not. They said the question says that Sundar Trader collects the consignment from the premises of Mehak and Sons. So the customer walks into the showroom and then collected the product, which means there is no movement. So when was the date in which it was delivered then? It was delivered on 30th of July. That will become the due date of invoice. That is 30th of July. So did they issue invoice before the due date? Yes. Then what is time of supply? Whichever is earlier. What is the earlier date? 21st of July. That's it. So to write this answer, what should you write extra? You should write what is section 12 subsection 2 in your answer first. Then you should write what is due date of invoice, which is 31 subsection 1. Then you should write that my date of invoice equal to 21st of July. What is my due date of invoice? 30th of July. And time of supply would be 21st of July. This is how you should write the answer. Okay. So I'm going to quickly show you how the answer will be written in the examination. Just for your clarity, I'm just showing you how the answer will be written. This is how the answer has to be written. I have written the answer and I'll just quickly go through to ensure that you know how to write the answer. Okay, so this is kind of a time of supply question answer structure. So first I have to reproduce what is 12 subsection 2. I have written 12 subsection 2 as what? As per 12 subsection 2 of CGST Act, time of supply for supplier of goods is earlier of Clause A, date of invoice or due date of invoice under section 31, or date of receipt of payment. I have written in bracket, it is omitted by notification 66 bar 2017 for cases other than composition levy and specified actionable claim. So 12 subsection 2 in full I have written. Then I have written 31 subsection 1 which talks about due date. As per 31 subsection 1, due date of invoice for supply of goods is date of removal of goods for supply if the supply involves movement of goods. If not, it is date of delivery or making goods available to recipient if the goods are delivered unfinished. I've written both of the provision in full. Then in the given question, I analyze the question. In the given question, Mehak and Sons is under regular scheme. So I'm not going to do clause B. So my time of supply will be in comparison with date of invoice and due date of invoice. Date of invoice I've written as 21st July and due date of invoice I've written as date of delivery, which is 30th of July. Time of supply is equal to 21st of July in bracket I've written earlier of the above. Only this much you have to represent. This would be a complete question which is only testing you on time of supply. Two, if you get a question which is only testing your time of supply, this is how you will answer. Understanding? So the first part, if this is a 3-mark question, the first two parts that you have written will carry you like 1.5 to 2 marks, and the last part will carry you 1 mark. That's how you will get the 3 marks on time of supply question. Is it clear how to write the answer for this? Is it clear, everyone? Okay. Now let's move to the next part. Look at services. What will be considered to be the time of supply? What you have to do from here is that now I've given you a structure. Look at maximum question in time of supply. It'll take hardly half an hour, 1 hour for you to solve further question. Look at question answer, then see whether you are making the answers correct, and then you are prepared for the exam. All that you have to do is that. So either in my question bank, you can get it online and then start doing full question bank in terms of all the question, or whatever question bank you have, or if not, at least ICAI's end of the chapter questions and MTP, RTP, all of that you refer to. Okay. So see, question answers is very, very important. Okay. In a revision class, I will not be able to do entire set of questions. That's why I do a separate batch called workout batch. So ensure that you do maximum number of questions. Okay, from here, what you have to do at your end is only doing questions. Take a question bank, resolve everything. So you are prepared for your exam. When the question comes in, there is no surprise. Look at this. Supplier of service. How do you determine time of supply for supplier of service? It is under 13 subsection 2. Section 13 talks about supply services, time of supply. Subsection 2 will determine for supplier. Very similar provision. In goods, we ask the question, did I issue the invoice within the due date? Same way we are asking the same question here. Did you issue the invoices or not is the question that we are asking. Now, same question, you can look at the screen. Let's read it once and then we'll go to a question and then resolve this also. Whether invoice is issued within the due date under section 31. In goods, what is the due date under section 31? We have to decide whether the supply of goods involves movement of goods or not. Service, nothing. Very simple provision. After completing the service, you are supposed to give a bill within 30 days. If you have done that, then you will go into this first part. And your time of supply would be invoice date or payment date, whichever is earlier. There is no omission of payment here in service. If you have answer as no, which means you did not give the bill within 30 days after completing the service, then you compare service date, provision of service, that is completion date, and date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. So 30 days did you issue the invoice is the question that you are asking. However, if it is a banking company, financial institution, NBFC and all, instead of 30 days, you can look at 45 days. I'll look at a question for that also. Look at question 17 for you. Let's look at this question. Modern security company, I'll read the question for you. Modern security company provides service of testing of electronic devices. In one case, it's tested a batch of devices on 4th and 5th September, but could not raise invoice till 19th November because of some dispute about the condition of the devices on return. The payment was made in December. What is the method to fix the time of supply of services? Is the question that I'm asking you. Read the question and then tell me that you read. So, is it goods or service? They're talking about testing of electronic devices, it's supply of service. We have not learned, so section 13 would apply for time of supply. We have never learned testing in under reverse charge, so it is 13 subsection 2. So what is that I have to look at? What was the date of completion of my service? That is 5th September. Within how many days I should have given the invoice? 30 days from here. In September, I have 25 days left, total 30 days. 5th October is my 30th day. So should have given, what is the due date of giving invoice? 5th October. Did I issue the invoice within 5th October? No. Could not raise invoice till 19th November. So in my computation, my time of supply provision would be from answer no. They did not issue the invoice within the due date. So my time of supply would be based on date of provision of service or date of receipt of payment. What is date of provision of service? What is date of provision of service? Let's go back to the question. Date of provision of service happened to be 5th September is the date on which I completed the service, or date of receipt of payment. Payment was received only in December, which is the earlier date here. It is 5th September. That will become the time of supply. Are you guys understanding the answer here? This is how we'll fix the time of supply. Now, how do you write this answer? Same way like that I have given you. Look at the answer that I have written for the same question here in. Look at how I have written it. First, I have written the provision. As per 13 subsection 2 of CGST Act, time of supply for services earlier of date of invoice or date of receipt of payment. If invoice is issued within the due date of invoice under section 31, that is within 30 days from the date of completion of service. If not, it is earlier of date of provision of service or date of receipt of payment. In the given question, modern security company has not issued invoice before the due date under section 31, that is before 5th of October. Date of provision of service is 5th of September. Date of receipt of payment is December, whichever is earlier is 5th of September, that is the time of supply. This is how you will present it. Okay. Very important examination point. Multiple exam they test this. If you don't have this, this is something, a summary that you might be wanting to keep a copy with you. How do you treat advances in GST? Should I pay, say for example, I'm going to provide supply of goods or supply of service as supplier, and I received an advance payment. So the question that I'm trying to answer here is GST payable on the advance payment, or GST is not payable on advance payment? I said it depends upon whether you're supplying goods or whether you're supplying services. So let's carefully look at this, and then we'll look at an example and then close this area. And I'll tell you how this is tested in the examination. Say, whenever you receive advance in GST, what document will be issued? Can I issue a tax invoice the moment I receive an advance? Will I issue a tax invoice when I receive an advance? The answer is no. Why? Because tax invoice is issued after I supply goods or services. I only received money. I will issue a document called receipt voucher. Look at so many documents that I've already taught you. I taught you a document called as tax invoice, bill of supply, debit note, credit note, payment voucher, invoice under RCM. Now I'm talking about a receipt voucher. So the document chapter is over. This is all you will have to understand. It's the best method to learn documents is to understand the document with a scenario, practically understanding it, instead of just by hearting what are the documents that is there in GST. So whenever I receive an advance, I will issue a document called receipt voucher. I'm supplier of goods and I receive an advance. Is GST payable on the advances? No. Why? If you look at 12 subsection 2, I have already told you that in 12 subsection 2, date of receipt of payment is omitted. So I told you that. So you look at in terms of 12 subsection 2, date of receipt of payment is omitted except for what cases? Except for composition levy scheme cases and specified actionable claims. So we can say in the summary that I have kept it like this. Look at the summary here. In case of supply of goods, you receive an advance. No GST payable in the month of advance because date of receipt of payment is omitted. So for goods, I'm a supplier, I'm a trader, I'm a manufacturer. If I receive advance, should I pay GST on the advance? No. When will I pay GST? Only in the month in which I issue invoice or due date of invoice has happened. Are you guys understanding? Because notification 66/2017 says payment is omitted in computing time of supply. In the past also, they never paid taxes on advances, the supplier of goods. Similarly, even in GST, there is no taxes that they pay on advances. But in goods itself, CLS and specified actionable claim, time of supply would be date of advance payment itself. What is advance? The payment that you receive before you complete or before you give the goods and before you give the goods, before you issue invoices, you are getting the money. Then the date of advance itself would become the time of supply in CLS cases and specified actionable claims, because your provision says compare what and what? Compare date of invoice, date of due date of invoice and date of receipt of payment. In advances in CLS and specified actionable claim, advance date would be earlier. All other cases in goods, you don't have to pay taxes on advances. Then examination, how they will test this. Carefully listen to me here. This is the important part you have to remember. In examination, they will give you structural questions wherein they will ask you to compute. I'll give an example, okay? In ICAI will ask you to compute GST liability for January month, okay, for a particular fellow or a company. Then they will say that this company has received, the company is a manufacturer or trader, and they would say that in January they have received some advance amount. Will you include this advance amount into your outward tax liability for January? The answer is no. Why? They are supplying goods. So for advances, supplier of goods will pay taxes only based on what? Only based on the month in which they have issued invoice or due date of invoice has happened. I don't pay taxes on advances for supply of goods. However, look at services. I have written for services, GST is payable on the advance received. Why? For advances, time of supply would be date of advance itself. How come? Look at the provision that we have in the section. The section is done like that. See, look at what is an advance payment. In services, before you complete the service, you got the money. We would call it as advance payment. Before you issue invoice, you got the advance payment. So you call it as an advance payment. So they're saying that suppose I issued invoice within 30 days from the completion date. My time of supply would be date of invoice or date of receipt of payment, right? If the answer is yes. Suppose I got the money as advance. What will be the earlier date? It will be the date of receipt of payment. So advance date would be the time of supply. If I did not complete, I completed the service, I did not issue invoice within 30 days, then my time of supply would be based on date of provision of service or date of receipt of payment. Here also, if I receive advance, completion will be earlier or payment will be earlier. Payment will be earlier. Automatically, my time of supply would be advance date. So in service, if you're receiving advance, you have to pay taxes in the same month in which you have received advance. So in an examination question, they're given two advance. Mr. Raju is supplier of goods and service. He received advance in January. Advance of 1 lakh received for supply of goods, and advance of 2 lakh received for supply of service in January. How much money will be included for computing liability for that month? 1 lakh or 2 lakh? Only 2 lakh. Why? Goods, I will pay taxes based on my invoice date. But for service, if you got advances, you are supposed to pay GST on the advance amount in that month itself. Are you guys understanding this? Is it clear? Can I have a quick thumbs up if this is clear? All right. Then there is one more twist that they do in the exam question. They will give you something about date of payment. They would say, you received the payment, advance I got. I got the advances by bank. I got a check, not cash. Payment is received by check as an advance. I got the check on 31st of January and I deposited this check and I got my money into my bank account only on 5th of February. Then what is the meaning of date of payment here? I said date of payment would be earlier of date of entry in the books or credit in the bank, which means government will take the beneficial date. What is the beneficial date? Government wants taxes earlier. So they said advance date would be date of entry in the books. When I received the check, I would have made the entry on what date? 31st of January. I got the credit on what date? 5th of February. What is the date of payment? 31st of January. That will be the time of supply. That is your understanding here. Is it clear? Is the advance part clear to all of you? Can I have a quick yes if this is clear? One small additional note for you to look at. So far not tested, but can be tested, right? So I'm just reading you through this also. Since I'm doing a chapter, trying to maximize the understanding in the chapter. If there is an excess payment received on an invoice up to ₹1,000, it can be adjusted with subsequent invoice, and subsequent invoice date will be time of supply instead of date of receipt of excess payment. Up to ₹1,000, if you got extra, don't treat it as an advance, is what they're saying. You can treat it as time of supply would be the next invoice date only. I will put you through an example question. Look at this question here. Zio Network, a telecom company, has issued invoice to Mr. Raju for January 2024 on 10th January 2024 for 980 rupees. Mr. Raju made payment on 15th January of rupees 1000. Zio Network has confusion over the taxability of excess amount of rupees 20 received on the invoice. However, Zio Network adjusted the rupees 20 excess against the invoice to be issued in February, that is 10th of February 2024. Advise Zio Network on the due date of payment of taxes on 20 excess received. Please read the question at your end once again and then tell me that you've read. Okay. So what is that they're saying here? They gave an invoice of 980 rupees, but how much was paid? 1000 rupees. How much Zio Network got extra? 20 rupees. What will be the time of supply for this 20 rupees? Why did someone pay 20 rupees extra? Because they know that there is a second additional bill, a postpaid bill. You might pay little amount extra. Should Zio Network treat this 20 rupees as an advance is a question. The answer is no. Why? If you get an excess payment on an invoice up to rupees 1000, it can be treated as a amount that can be adjusted with the next bill. You don't need to treat it as an advance. So your time of supply for this 20 rupees would be what? The date on which they gave the next bill. What is that next bill date? Which will be 10th of February. So I have written this as an answer here. If an excess payment is received on an invoice up to rupees 1000, adjust with the next bill. The next bill date would be the time of supply. Don't treat it as an advance, right? So in the given question, Zio Network received excess payment of 20, which is within the limit of 1000. Hence, time of supply for such excess payment will be the date of subsequent invoice, that is 10th of February. It will not be the date of excess payment, it will be the next bill date. This is the provision that we have. Now let's move to the next segment of provision for us, which is due date of invoice. So we have learned two segment of due date of invoice. This is something that we can club with this segment of discussion. Section 31 talks about what are the due date of invoices. In that you have 7 subsections for us to learn. In that 31.1 talks about due date of invoice for goods, which we have already seen. If there is no movement, it is date of delivery. If there is movement, it is date of removal of goods for delivery. Then 31.2 talks about what is the due date of invoice for services. We said you are supposed to issue invoice within 30 days. If it is banking company, financial institution, NBFC, insurer, it is 45 days. That is given in 31.1, 31.2. So these two provisions are the ones that we have now learned together with time of supply. 31.3 talks about documents. Like you remember 31.3F, 31.3G. These are the documents that we talked about, in case of RCM. 31.3F, invoice under RCM. 31.3G, payment voucher. That is something that we have to separately discuss in the document we have done. Then there are 4 more additional cases that we have, which is talking about continuous supply of goods. What is the due date in 31.4? Continuous supply of service. What is the due date in 31.5? 31.6 talks about cessation of services before completion. 31.7 talks about sale on approval or reject basis. What is the due date? They are saying that in these special cases, my original due date in 31.1 and 31.2 will not be applicable. So if you are comparing or determining time of supply, I should compare this due date with the actual date of invoice and then determine what is the time of supply. Okay, so they occasionally ask questions on 31, 4, 5, 6, 7. Even though it's an invoice chapter, best place to learn this is time of supply chapter. First segment of discussion would be what is continuous supply of goods, continuous supply of service, why you cannot apply the normal due date and why I need a special due date. Let me take you through this understanding. Continuous supply of goods. What is continuous supply of goods? Continuous supply of goods is supply of goods through pipeline, cable, etc., which involves periodic payment. I've given you a basic example kind of a definition. The definition is slightly different. I'm giving you an easy definition that you can remember. If I'm giving you goods by cable pipeline, wherein there is periodic payment, let me call it as continuous supply of goods. I'm saying that my original due date will not be applicable here. Instead, the due date would be account statement date or periodic payment date. I'll tell you why we need this. I'm going to take you through one example for this matter. The classic example, this is something that I have given in my example notes in the tax school. I'll give you, this is the classic example to look at continuous supply. The question that we have is also on similar line. Say, I'll tell you my apartment as an example for you. In my apartment, the LPG gas connection is not like the connection wherein I'll have to order a cylinder full of LPG and then it comes to my house. Instead, we have a common pipeline connection from Indian Gas. So the pipeline has a common storage unit for my entire apartment. From there, every kitchen in the apartment has one connection. This is how that connection generally works. And in that case, what will be are they supplying goods? Yes, through pipeline. LPG gas is a goods that is supplied through pipeline. Normally, what is the due date of issuing invoice by Indian Gas to the customer? We have to ask the question whether there is movement of goods, there is no movement of goods. The due date of issuing invoice would be the date of delivery. What is the date of delivery of this product in my kitchen? It is continuously delivered. So can I ask Indian Gas? Can I ask Indian Gas to issue invoice as and when the gas is delivered to my kitchen? No. Reason being, morning I'm preparing a tea. I switch on the stove and then the flame comes. So the gas is being delivered. They cannot issue invoices as and when I switch it on, right? So they said the normal provision of asking them to issue invoice as and when the goods are delivered will not work here. Therefore, I'll tell you how it works in my apartment. So generally, on a monthly basis, the caretaker comes, do the reading, they'll give you a statement. Okay, this much is your consumption. Then in a mobile app, I get the invoice. This is how the system works. In my friend's apartment, it does not work on a monthly basis. They give a quarterly statement, but monthly they make some 2000 rupees payment. First month, second month 2000, third month they will adjust whatever is the difference and then issue a statement. So they said the due date of issue of invoices for continuous supply of goods would be account statement date. If it's not available, periodic payment date, not the delivery date. So ideally, Indian Gas should give me the invoice on or before the statement date. The caretaker gives me a statement, before that they should give me the invoice. Then invoice date will be the time of supply. If not, periodic, it will be the account statement date, that is the due date of invoice, that will become the time of supply. Suppose there is no account statement, then due date of invoice will be the date of periodic payment. Whenever I made part payment, that will be the due date of invoice. So earlier of periodic payment date or date of invoice will be considered as the time of supply. So what should I do with this 31(4)? I should apply this 31(4) into section 12 subsection 2, replace it with the due date of invoice. So don't take the normal due date, instead take the due date that is given in 31(4) in case of continuous supply of goods, is the provision that we have. Continuous supply of service. I'm considering continuous supply of service to be an important provision here. Why? Because there is a circular clarification on hybrid annuity model, which is considered to be continuous supply of service. Let's look at that. Continuous supply of service, the definition is not same as continuous supply of goods. Continuous supply of service definition says, if you provide a service for more than 3 months and there is periodic payment, it will be treated as continuous supply of service. What is normally the due date of issuing invoice for service? After completing the service within 30 days. I'm saying in continuous supply that might not be the right approach. Reason being, Reliance wants to construct a shopping mall. Shopping mall construction is going to take 3 years. 100 crore is the money that is going to be given by Reliance to the contractor, which is Royal Contractor. Normally, for 100 crore, when should Royal Contractor give the bill? After 3 years, because 100% completion, then I can take 30 days. But will Royal Contractor take their own money and then do the construction and then collect 100 crores from Reliance, or they will collect this 100 crores in part by part? They will collect this in part by part. So they said, here the payment is given part by part. Why should I have only invoices given? Why should I have only invoices given after 100% completion within 30 days? So they said, I wanted to replace the due date. I wanted to replace the due date that we have here with a different due date. Whenever there is a service which is there for more than 3 months and there is periodic payment given, I would call this particular activity as continuous supply of service. What is the name that I've given for it? Continuous supply of service. In that case, your due date of invoice will be different. Mark, this is important, continuous supply of service. They said, look at your contract. Generally, for continuous supply of service, there are 3 types of contracts. First type of contract, part payment date is mentioned in the contract itself. 100 crore is the total payment. They have given that 1st January 10 crore will be paid, 31st December 20 crore will be paid. Likewise, the partial payment date is mentioned in the contract. Then due date of invoice for each part will be the date mentioned in the contract. Second is the most popular method of contract for construction, which is part payment is linked to completion of a partial event. Like normally in construction contract, they would say total is 100 crore project cost. I will give you 10 crore as and when you finish foundation. I'll give you another 20 crore when you finish your plastering work. I'll give you 30 crore when you finish concrete. I'll give you another 30 crore when painting is done. I'll give you 10 crore when the handover is done. Likewise, they'll mention. Then the invoice cannot be issued put together. Invoice needs to be issued as and when you complete partial event mentioned in the contract. If nothing is mentioned in the contract, whenever there is a part payment paid, there should be a partial invoice that is to be given. What is the relevance of this? This is the due date that I should compare for determining the time of supply. What is the time of supply for services? Let's go back to the time of supply provision. I have to ask the question whether invoice is issued within 30 days. Here, if it's a continuous supply, will I ask whether invoice is issued within 30 days? No. Look at, in case of continuous supply of service, due date of invoice is taken not as 30 days from the date of completion. It is taken as date mentioned in the agreement, or date of completion of a partial event, or date of receipt of partial payment. I have to ask the question, did you issue the invoice within the date mentioned in the contract, or did you issue the invoices before the due date of completion of a partial event? If the answer is yes, then you compare date of invoice and date of payment. If the answer is no, you will compare the due date. Instead of provision of service, you will compare due date with date of receipt of payment, is what the provision says. Now let's try to analyze this with that hybrid annuity model example. Yeah, this is an important circular, might be new if you have not gone through this before. We have my chart note you're referring to. (108). If you're having the chart note, you're referring to page number 108. If not, you look at the screen and then read through. Time limit for time of supply for services related to construction and maintenance of roads under hybrid annuity model (HAM) for national highway projects by National Highway Authority of India (NHAI). What is a hybrid annuity model? Yeah, so in the examination, if you have not read through this, suddenly hybrid annuity model and all comes in, you will find it to be like, okay, something that you have never learned, and you might not be able to move from there in that question. That's why these kind of things I'm discussing in even in a revision. What is nature of HAM contract? HAM contract are comprehensive agreements encompassing both construction and operation and maintenance of highways. Payments are structured over the contract period, holding concessionaire accountable for both construction and ongoing maintenance. I've given an example here, right? What is a hybrid annuity model? There are multiple models that the government uses for construction of roads. In hybrid annuity model, National Highway Authority will go to say a construction company called L&T. They're telling L&T that, L&T, I want you to construct Mysore Bangalore highway. You can construct this highway, you can take say 4 years to construct this. After constructing this, I want you to do the maintenance of this road for 10 years more. So 4 plus 10, 14 years of contract I'm writing. Once you finish the construction, I will give you 6 crore rupees. After that, every year I will give you some amount from the toll that I'm going to collect. So your contract is construction plus maintenance, and this contract is going to go on for how much time? 14 years. First 4 years you complete, I'll give you 10 crore. Then I'll give you, say, total amount is 20 crore. For 10 years, I'll give you 1 crore each. Could be a contract. Or totally I would say 100 crore. First completion, I'll give you 10 crore. Then 10 years, I'll give you 10 crore each. Or I'll give you 9 years, 10 crore each. 90 plus 10, 100 crore contract. This kind of contract wherein a longer number of years of operation, maintenance, and construction, all of these are included in one single contract, is called as what? HAM, hybrid annuity model contract, very commonly used for construction and maintenance of roads. Are you guys understanding what is this contract? Right. What is the time of supply for? Who's the supplier here? L&T is the supplier. Who's the recipient? NHAI, National Highway Authority of India is the recipient. How do I determine time of supply? Here is the question. L&T is providing supply of goods or supply of service? They are providing supply of service, construction, operation, maintenance or service. What will be the time of supply for paying GST? Should they pay GST only after 10 years when the contract is over? No, they have to pay GST in between as and when they receive payment. So first clarification they gave is when L&T is providing a hybrid annuity model contract of operation, maintenance and construction, it is called as what supply of service? Continuous supply of service. Clarification number 1. They said these contracts are classified as continuous supply of service under 2 subsection 33 due to their extended duration and periodic payment structure. Clarification number 1. Hybrid annuity model contract for construction, operation, maintenance is a continuous supply of service. Then how will I determine time of supply? What is the due date of issuing invoice? I'll have to look at the contract. So look at the time of supply provision. Now, due date of invoice will be what date? If the contract is mentioning the date on which payment is to be given, that date. If not, it is linked to completion of a milestone or an event. It will be the date on which they have completed the milestone that is given in the contract. So I have to look at, to determine time of supply, I have to look at if invoices are issued on or before the specified date or upon completion of a contractual event. Then if the answer is yes, I have completed, then date of invoice and date of part payment, whichever is earlier, would be the time of supply. If the answer is yes, then invoice and payment. If the answer is no, then what should I take? I should take the look at the second part here. If the invoices are not issued within the prescribed time frame, what is the prescribed time frame here? Within the due date mentioned in the contract, okay, or within the completion of, like say they have first finished the basic foundation. They said NHA has told L&T that they will finish the basic laying of foundation by so and so date. After finishing the basic foundation, L&T is going to receive 5 crore. They are supposed to issue invoice before completion of this foundation. For how much value? 5 crore. If they do that, invoice and payment, whichever is earlier, would be the time of supply. If not, look at it. Time of supply is earlier of date of service provision. Here service provision means due date as per the contract or payment receipt date. This is how you will compute. I will give you an example with some numbers to ensure that you understand this in full. Let me just drop you an example. L&T is having a contract with NHAI. What is this contract called as? Hybrid annuity model. What are the things they do? Construction, operation and maintenance. Suppose this is a 10-year contract. Okay. There is an agreement. It says that once the foundation is done, they will receive 10 crore. The foundation was done on 1st of January 2024. Once the road is complete, they will get another 10 crore, which was completed by 36/2025. Then every year on 31st of December, they will get 1 crore each for 10 years. This is the contract they have. My question is, how do I determine time of supply for L&T? First, I have to write this is a continuous supply of service in my examination. Because what is continuous supply of service? Service for more than 3 months, and it involves what payment? Periodic payment. Of course, this is 10 years, periodic payments are made. It is a continuous supply of service. Then I have to look at what is the due date. Due date is for 10 crore. What is the due date? For 10 crore, due date will be the date of completion of this foundation. That is first of due date of what? Due date of issuing invoice. Okay, it is 1st of January 2024. For next 10 crore, it is 30th of uh, 30th of June 2025. So L&T gave invoice. Date of invoice for 10 crore, first 10 crore was 5th Jan. They gave it on 5th Jan 2024. For the next 10 crore, for completion of road, they gave the invoice on 25th of June 2025. Determine time of supply for both of these payments. First 10 crore. Tell me what will be the time of supply. When should they pay GST to the government? How will you compute? I have to look at for the first 5 crore. Sorry, first 10 crore. I have to ask the question, is the invoice issued within the due date? What is the due date? 1st of January. When did they give the invoice? 5th of January. Invoice is not issued. Invoice, date of invoice is after due date. Then what should I compare? The due date and date of payment, whichever is earlier. Second case, when was the due date of invoice? It was 30/6/2025. When did I issue the invoice? 25th of June 2025. Is it within the due date? Yes. Date of invoice is before the due date. What will I compare? Date of invoice or date of payment, whichever is earlier. Right? So the first case, if payment is not yet made, it will be 5th January 2024. Let's assume payment is not made. Payment is not made yet. Then time of supply for first 10 crore would be 1st of January 24. For the next 10 crore would be 25th of June 2025. Are you guys understanding this? Is it clear? Can I have a quick yes? Right. Yeah. So this is a hybrid annuity model. Similarly, they have given two more cases where you have a special due date for invoice. One is cessation of service before completion and goods sent on approval basis. Cessation of service before completion means if even before the services are completed, what if the service stops? Cessation of service before completion. Due date of invoice would be date on which service ceases to the extent of supply made before such cessation. I started providing the services for 30 days. On 1st January, I started. On 5th January, my service got broken. Cessation means stops. Then, say for 30 days, I have quoted 30 lakh rupees. 5 days, my service got cancelled. They are now giving me 5 days money. What will be the due date of invoice for that 5 days money that I am receiving? Normally, I should issue invoice within 30 days from the date of completion. Here, I'm ceasing the services before completion. I will never complete, so I cannot compute 30 days from the date of completion because I'll never complete. So whenever there is a broken service that happens before the completion, then due date of invoice would be date on which service ceases to the extent of supply made before such cessation is the provision that says. So from 1st January to 5th January, if I have stopped the service on 5th January, due date of invoice would be 5th January itself. Because I am not going to complete this particular service, my normal due date of invoice will not work there. Look at goods sent on approval basis. The transaction called goods sent on approval basis, I will send the goods to the customer by a document called delivery challan. In GST, the document called delivery challan is issued when there is transfer of goods and it is not a supply. So, goods sent on approval basis, I will send the goods, then I will give them some time to approve the goods. But in GST, it says that if the goods are not approved within 6 months, then within 6 months from the date of removal, you're supposed to issue invoice. So the due date of invoice for transaction called goods sent on approval basis would be earlier of actual date of supply, which means the date of approval, or 6 months from the date of removal. One question we can look at to ensure that you understand this. Zinc Trans of Kolkata is engaged in trading of transmitters. On 25/2021, Zinc Trans has sent 500 units of transmitters for exhibition at Chennai on sale on return basis. Out of the said 500 units, 300 units have been sold on 28/7/2021 at the exhibition. Out of the remaining 200 units, 150 units have been brought back to Kolkata on 25/11/2021, and balance 50 units have neither been sold nor brought back. Explain the provision under GST law relating to the issue of invoice with exact date on which tax invoice need to be issued by Zinc Trans. Again, my pace for the classes are determined by how fast you answer. You give the answer faster, then it will go faster. Basic principle. Huh? Read the question and give me an answer on the chat box. You tell me what will be the exact date on which tax invoice needs to be issued. They are sending the goods on exhibition on what basis? Sale on approval or reject basis. How many units are sent? On 20 May 2021, they have sent 500 units. At the time they are sending this 500 units, what document will they issue? A document called delivery challan. They are supposed to issue invoices if the goods are not sold within 6 months, right? Or if it is not, if it is, see, there are multiple possibilities there. On 25/2021, they sent the goods. At that time, only a delivery challan was issued. So let's compute 6 months from there. 6 months from there would be what? 5 plus 6 is 11. So 2021. So let's look at what happened before that. 300 units are sold on 28. So 300 units are sold on 28/7/2021. So these are sold before 6 months. So what will be the due date of issuing invoices? It will be 27/2021 because that is the date on which what happened? The product was sold, which means it is date of supply. So this is the due date of invoice. But for balance units, see, this 150 units are brought back to Kolkata on 25/11, which is after 2011. Which means 6 months are over. So when should I issue the invoice? On 25/11 or 2011 itself? 2011 itself. 50 units are neither sold or nor brought back, but still does not matter. All the 200 units are neither brought back or sold by 2011. So you have to issue invoice by 2011/2021. This will be the answer for this question. So your due date of invoice is date of supply or 6 months from the date of removal, whichever is earlier. So beyond 6 months, you cannot keep. Then what happens? If they are sending the goods back on 150 units are brought back after 6 months, but I already gave the bill, I already paid the taxes, then I will issue a document called credit note to return it back. This 50 units are neither brought back nor neither sold or not brought back. When they are brought back, they will have to issue a credit note to cancel it because I already gave the bill. Now this 50 units, what if it is sold after some time? Should I issue again an invoice? No, my due date would be 20/11/2021. I don't have to pay taxes again. So this is your understanding that you have. A question like this can be coming into your examination. Is it clear, all of you? Is it clear? Okay. So we finished off due date of invoice and HAM. We just have RCM time of supply to look at, but we'll take a 10 minutes break before that.